Hey, everybody. Welcome to the GMI Rocket Show. I'm your host, Roman Zelichenko, former immigration attorney turned entrepreneur. I am the co-founder and CEO of Laborless, an immigration tech company that automates H-1B visa compliance and soon perm compliance, and the founder of GMI Rocket, which is a digital marketing agency focused on the immigration and global mobility, and of course, which brings you this show. I'm very excited today for our guest, who's also a local New Yorker. I often talk to people all over the world or all over the US. And today my guest is in New York. We probably could have done this live, but we do these shows remotely for everybody's ease. Our guest today is Sampei Omichi, who is the co-founder or founder rather and CEO of Ellis, ellis.com. So Ellis is a tech-first immigration law firm. It's a modern immigration law firm based out of New York, but with attorneys all over the country that supports individuals and companies with their immigration needs, right? With their U.S. immigration needs. Ellis is an Arizona-based firm, so they are one of these kind of new non-traditional law firms that's raised outside capital and are really changing the way the immigration landscape works now and will continue to work in the future. So I'm really excited to dig into some of that with Sampei, and of course talk about his journey to the US and starting the business and how the business has pivoted. It's going to be an awesome episode, so I'm really looking forward to it. Before we jump in, I do want to give a quick thank you to the main sponsor of this episode, 8 a.m. DocketWise. So for those in the immigration industry who are practitioners or even in-house folks, DocketWise is an end-to-end immigration case management platform that provides best-in-class immigration forms in a lot of different languages, or rather possible customizable questionnaires in a lot of different languages, industry-leading integrations with different platforms like my own, Laborless. Great customer service. I've known the team for a very long time, and I've watched them grow and kind of expand their services and ultimately get acquired. And now they've gone through a rebrand, which is 8 a.m. They're a really great team. One of the things I really like about DocketWise is that they actually create a lot of value for the industry, a lot of content. They have really great blogs for immigration attorneys on a variety of different topics like marketing and business development, et cetera. They have an ebook, they have a podcast, and so much more. So if you're interested, if you're in the market for an immigration case management platform, or honestly, if you want a tool for forms and you have something else for case management, DocketWise does that and integrates with other platforms. So do check them out at 8am.com/DocketWise and tell them that you heard about them from the GMI Rocket Show. Okay, long introduction, but without further ado, Sampei, thank you so much for being here, man. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited for our conversation. I've been wanting to have this chat for a long time.
Thanks for having me, Roman. I've been following your stuff for a while as well. I feel like we've been watching each other from afar for many years, but glad we finally got to meet. And,
this is it's a small industry, right? In a way, although it's growing quite rapidly. I mean, there's so many great companies out there, that are building technology for the immigration space or building, modern and different immigration law firms. So it's been, I never thought I'd get to episode 50, right? I just thought, I'll get some of my friends or, colleagues on the show and see what happens during COVID. And here we are. So anyways, thank you for being here. So, we'll dive into Ellis and how the firm works, and what makes you different and, what you're excited about it. But before that, I always love digging into and learning about the guest and, their life and their backstory. By the way, for anybody who's watching or listening live, please ask questions, leave comments. If you work with Sampei, give them a shout out, whatever. We love, interacting with folks live. Okay. So Sampei, you came here for college. So you had a whole life outside of the US. I know you grew up in Vietnam, and you spent time also in Japan, so you're fluent in multiple languages. Talk a little bit about that. What was that like, and what was who was Sampei as a kid growing up in Vietnam?
So my dad's Japanese, my mom's Vietnamese, but I was born and raised primarily in Vietnam. I spent summers in Japan, so I can speak all 3 languages. But the reason why I have the perfect American accent is I went to international school. So I think I learned English at the age of 7. Um, Grew up, reading the same books as American kids. Like I did Shakespeare, I did world history, I did World War II, like all the same education. Our school had the IB program, so International Baccalaureate program, which is pretty common amongst like international schools abroad and also like European schools. So that was kind of my upbringing. It confuses a lot of people, but I moved to the U.S. when I was 17 to start college at Babson College in Boston.
When you so we'll obviously get to that, but
Yeah,
just to kind of just to because I'm curious, right? I always when I hear about people growing up in
yeah.
other world and attending international schools, where were the other kids from? Were they were they just locals like you whose parents wanted to send them to a school like that? Did you have people whose families were from all over the world and were living in Vietnam for business or government reasons or something?
I want to say like a third of the kids were like local Vietnamese kids who where their parents wanted to send them to international school for whatever reason, get an American education. Um, the other 2/3, I would say, were ex kids of expats and
Mm,
diplomats. So like think um the president of Pfizer, right? Pfizer Asia,
mm,
gets sent to Vietnam to build out their manufacturing. Their kids would go to my school. So that's kind of like the environment I was surrounded in. It was very, very international. I had friends from Philippines, Malaysia, France, Japan, Korea, um, and it was kind of like a mishmash of cultures. I viscerally remember like one day a year we had this thing called International Day, and like
mm.
you would kind of group up with your like where you were from, and you would just like make some food, dress in your kind of cultural clothes, and then like kids would go around. It's kind of like a fair almost. Um, yeah, so like there's a lot of like that type of stuff. And you kind of get you learn how to be tolerant
Mm,
and like acclimating to different cultures at a very, very young age. Because it's just like what you grow up with. It's like, the
right.
crush that you have is from a different country, or like, your best friend is like, has a different cultural norm at home, and you just like
Yeah.
get used to it.
That's
Vietnam also has a huge French influence, given the French colonization. And then there's also a huge Russian influence,
hmm.
because of um, like my parents' generation, roughly, basically the top 1% of students were shipped off to Russia to kind of
Hmm.
like learn their ways of country building, and then basically all of the top students at the time came back to Vietnam and started industry. So,
Oh, wow.
like the noodle brands, like the company that makes the bricks, the companies that make the roads, right? All of those people were educated in Russia, and so hence like a lot of the Vietnamese kids at my school even like spent some time in Russia at one point, and so there's like a French influence, Russian influence, and then like international influence. Um, yeah, it's
So
pretty
fascinating.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking
Was this
backwards, it's pretty interesting.
was the school did the school sort of, tell students to be tolerant? Because I can imagine, you're a kid and you just act how people what you see or what you learn. Did the school make it clear that look, everyone's from a different place and so, or no, it was just a natural
I
thing?
I never remember having that conversation.
Hmm.
Actually, it was just kind of like just like regular school things,
Yeah.
like some there's like don't bully each other,
Right.
like
Right.
or like yeah, just like regular kids stuff.
Yeah.
And I think this was kind of
Fascinating.
just more of like an undertone that
Mhm.
just like was never discussed.
And maybe
Um,
also look, if it's almost basic survival instincts, right? If you want to make friends and keep friends, you sort of have to be tolerant in an
yeah.
environment like that.
My graduating
So,
class was
yeah.
also like not that big. We were like
Mm,
80 per class. So you kind of get to know everyone. And
mm.
once you hit puberty with, your 60 close people, it's just like, okay, you're just like, yeah, and I keep in touch with a lot of them till this day. Henry, who is our head of operations at Ellis, I've known him since I was 8 years old. I went to 3rd grade with him through 12th grade.
Wow.
He also lives with me now, so he's my roommate. We're colleagues, and we used to go to school together. So like a lot of the bonds you make, I think, is like pretty strong given the unique experience.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Very cool. And so, okay, so during this time, I like to ask this question. You know, you're growing up in this really unique environment with people from all over, whose parents do a variety of different things. Were you more of kind of a studious kid, you know, in the books, kind of thinking about a career, maybe, or maybe, you know, at home, parents are telling you make sure to study, or were you sort of a tinkerer slash kind of entrepreneurial kid naturally? You know?
Um, I was definitely the latter. I think I think I didn't really see the point of school up until maybe I was like 12 or 13.
Mm,
Um, and then I think I had a pretty like big realization that, oh, this actually matters for kind of like the next couple stages of my life. Um, and so, you know, I I, I like to describe myself as the A minus kid with a lot of side projects.
right.
But I think back to your questions on like if you were entrepreneurial, I think a lot of it is innate, and I don't remember these experiences, but the accounting of my parents and my aunt was that I've always been pretty crafty. I was you know uh, there are these like beetle bugs that were like really popular in Japan in when I was like 10 or 11 maybe. And so I would like go and catch them on the weekends and then sell them to my friends to like raise as pets like at
Wow.
school during on the playground. So I was kind of always doing these types of things. I ran the Minecraft server for my middle school. So I bought this like PC computer by convincing my mom to loan me a couple $100s, and then I would basically run a server 24/7, and then like kids play on it. I didn't make any money off that, but like that was like a good amount of social capital that came with it, where it's like, oh, now I was the guy with the Minecraft server.
Right.
So um, yeah, there's a lot of like random crafty things like this. Really got into a game called Dota 2. Are you familiar with this, Roman?
I've heard, yeah, I've never played it, but I know it, yeah.
It's kind of
But
like
for
League of Legends. It's like 5v5 MOBA game. And
mhm,
um like I got like really really good at it. It like consumed my life almost. And I was like semi pro in Vietnam, making money in the weekends like playing
no
this game.
way. Wow.
Um I
How old were
actually
you?
had to quit cold. I was like maybe 14.
Oh, wow.
And like at that time, like like 500 $1,000, I was like, I'm freaking rich, right?
Right.
um but like I had to give up that game. It was crack cocaine to me, and it was just like too good, consumed my life, and I had to. Yeah, I thought like focusing my energy on other things would be more helpful.
I suppose it's just out of curiosity. I mean, did your parents or anybody say, "Okay, Sampei, you have to lay off this game because your grades are suffering," or did you? I'm just curious. Did you actually see that and say, "All right, I'm obviously I'm taking it too far. Let me go back to what a 14-year-old should be doing, which is like school and stuff."
Um, I want to say like my parents like took a very laissez-faire approach with my upbringing. It
Mhm.
was like uh they would just do enough to make sure that like I wasn't in harm's way, but it
Right.
was like whatever I wanted to do with my time, it was like really
Yeah.
up to me.
Yeah.
Um, so that kind of allowed me to kind of explore a bunch of things and like
Yeah.
um yeah, it was pretty
That's
fun.
and I do feel like and there must have been some fundamental trust that they see you're a smart kid, you're making the right decisions overall, and you know, whether they did that act, you know, consciously or subconsciously, that kind of childhood and that kind of thought process, I do find breeds a lot of business people because you've had this, you know, freedom to explore different ideas and actually put energy into them, and you know, you weren't met with no, you can't do that, and constant like run up against the rules or whatever. You just were able to explore, and I do find that folks who start businesses, especially many businesses over their lifetimes, were like that. Not always, but I do find
Yeah,
that that happens.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Um, I agree with that. I tell my friends when like discussions come up on like how you're gonna raise your kids. I was like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna ignore them. Like, I feel like that's like the best way to go about it. I think there were actually some pretty good psychological research in that most of the parenting happens between the ages of 0 and 4.
Mm.
I don't remember the specific paper, but basically the thesis of it was like, you have to teach them how to communicate with adults, and you have to teach them how to communicate with like their peers. And then after that, it's just like they're learning from their peers. Um,
Hmm.
and so I think there's some truth to that. I don't know. I'm not a parent, but um, I, 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 I think like a little bit of neglect did me pretty good in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. Let's call it freedom.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, okay, so you've got this sort of upbringing where you're doing well enough in school, obviously, but you're focusing on some other things, projects, games, etc. And it does feel like everything you do, you do it to a degree that provides value, either for yourself as a gamer, or selling beetles or running a Minecraft server. Like, if it wasn't working, people wouldn't play on your Minecraft server. You took the responsibility on and did that. So you graduate high school, and as you mentioned earlier, you end up coming to the U.S. for college. You go to Babson College. What was your thought process? I mean, at this point, you've grown up in this sort of, yes, in Vietnam and Japan as well, but you are around this Americanized Western education. Did you know for sure you wanted to attend university outside of, in the U.S. or elsewhere, or kind of what was your thought process there, if you remember?
Um, I think my thought process was, one, I wanted to be in a English speaking country,
Hmm.
and two, I either wanted to be a physicist or an entrepreneur. Those were kind of like the only two paths for me. So junior year of high school, I did a program in special relativity, which is like the precursor to Einstein's like general relativity in the UK. So I was at Oxford for 3 months, and I like just did not like it. I thought the UK was understimulating. It was boring. Um, Not to bash on anyone from the UK, but
Right.
I thought it wasn't the right fit for me. Um, it also felt very like social mobility was like more difficult, whereas in America had more of a sense of an American dream, where if you work hard, you can quote unquote make it.
Mhm.
So between UK and US, I tried out UK, didn't like it. Process of elimination. We're going on America. Um, and so I was talking to a bunch of teachers at my school and like what schools I should apply to, the typical college process. And I spoke to my econ professor who, uh, went to Harvard, spent time in Boston, and she basically told me, "Hey, you seem pretty entrepreneurial. You should apply to the school called Babson College. They have, the #1 rated entrepreneurship program in the U.S. It's a small liberal arts school, or business school, in Boston. You probably won't get in, but you should apply anyways." And I remember those words very viscerally. Um, so I applied ED. I kind of like threw my weight behind the entire application.
Mm.
I basically did not pay attention to anything else. I think I applied to like one or two more schools. I can't even remember at this point. But I didn't really have a plan B. Um, and then I got in, and then packed 2 bags and went to Boston. And that's kind of how life in America started.
That's awesome. It's so great that happened, but hearing you tell that story makes me kind of it makes me sad to think that a counselor would say that to a student, to say, yeah, I mean, you're not going to get in. I mean, instead of trying to help you figure out how to get in. But maybe that is actually what worked, because a lot of times I find that founders, entrepreneurs have the kind of, oh, well, I'll show you kind of attitude, and when someone tells you you can't do something, that's way more fuel for, your fire to actually get that thing done. So maybe,
Yeah.
as I'm talking, maybe that was better for her to do, to say.
Yeah. I mean, I think it worked. I don't know if it was purposeful, but it
Yeah.
definitely worked. I also did really enjoy her class and her as a human.
Mm.
So it was a little bit out of character, but I think it was done out of from a good place.
Sure, of course. So
Yeah.
okay, so great. You arrived, or you are obviously, you applied, you got into this college, but Yeah, you grew up in America. You sound like you grew up, here in New York or in Boston or in California or whatever. But obviously, you're not a U.S. citizen, right? So,
Yeah,
so you do have to go
working
through the
on it.
U.S.
Working on it.
Working on it. That's right. And
Working on
you're
it.
you're in a field where luckily you have all the best people right at your fingertips.
Yeah.
But at the time, you obviously have to come here as a foreign student, right? An international student. What was that process like? I mean, you obviously came here eventually as an F1 visa, but what do you remember about that process? Was it pretty seamless as a student? Was that your first run up against quote unquote, the challenges of US immigration, et cetera?
Yeah. So I don't remember the specific details of it. But I can tell you like how I felt. And
Okay.
how I felt was I felt like a fourth of my brain space and like what I was thinking about was always my immigration status. Like,
Mhm.
oh, can I do this? Is this within the bounds? Especially as someone who's entrepreneurial and wanted to kind of do projects and maybe make money on the side. It was like, what are the constraints and bounds of my F1 visa? Like that was always like front of mind. I eventually figured out some ways to work during the summer using CPT, even work during the school year with CPT, and I can get a little bit more on like my experience with growing my first the first startup I was a part of, OPT during the summers, things like this. And then kind of figuring out the constraints of early graduation. What does the H lottery look like? It was kind of just always front of mind, and I think I was on top of it more than the average person. So I de
Mhm.
facto became the visa guy at Babson, where it was just like, oh, if you have questions, just go to Sampei. And so I was kind of like uh, providing guidance to my peers on like, oh, you should probably do this. You should probably, apply for these types of jobs because they would be more willing to sponsor. Um, are you there, Roman?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought you froze for a second.
No.
And so um, that's kind of how I that's kind of how it felt
Mhm.
going through the process. And I graduated in 2020 right into COVID. I joined an early stage startup called River.com, River Financial. um, I was part of the team throughout college, and
Mhm.
then obviously I joined them full time post graduation. I had 1 year of OPT. I did not qualify for the STEM extension because of the nature of my degree. Babson did make their degree STEM the year after I left, which is unfortunate, but
Yes.
how the cards fell. Um, I ran some like just the basic odds of the H1B lottery. I believe that year it was about 28%.
Mhm.
Um, did not get it, so had to come up with an alternate plan, which is how I ended up here today.
And one thing to note there, especially as you said that Babson ended up making it a STEM program, it's just kind of the arbitrary nature of all this stuff, right? I mean, and the fact that you graduated with a Bachelor of Science in
Mhm.
Business Administration, which it's like. And by the way, you said you graduated early, right? You said you looked at early graduation.
Yeah, so I did 3 years instead of four. Thought I'd
Hmm.
save my mom some cash.
Right.
And so like I had the credits. I took a bunch of AP and IB classes in college. After I started taking school seriously, I think I came
Right.
in with like a year of credit. So it was pretty straightforward for me to graduate a year early.
And the irony there is you graduated early, but if you had stayed and graduated the quote unquote normal
Regular
time,
time, I
you
would have
you
gotten
would
the
have
3 years. Yeah.
gotten to 3 years of OPT. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
you engineered your own challenges in a way, but those challenges also led to you kind of where you are today. Okay, so you're going through this H-1B process, or you're trying. You apply for the lottery, didn't get it, right? And you only have the 1 year of OPT. Now you've been working at River Financial for a few years, so they, obviously they wanted you, and I'm sure there was some discussion there. What conclusion did you come to? Like, what did you end up doing as a fail safe to be able to stay in the U.S.?
Well, look, my employers at River, like I joined when there's 4 people. By the time I left, I think we were like close to 30. Um, their stance, and I think for if there are any like international students listening, like joining early stage startups are great because they'll be more flexible in your visa sponsorship. And River's stance was, hey, we know nothing about the visa sponsorship process. You have unlimited resources, go figure it out. We are fully supportive in any path you take. The issue there was like there was no path. I wasn't familiar with day one CPT. Not that I probably wouldn't have pursued that path anyways, but it's just like these things weren't front of mind for me at that time. So essentially the conclusion I came to was, hey, I knew I wanted to start a company down the line, maybe in my late 20s, early 30s, but it kind of accelerated my timeline. So the brilliant plan that I came up with in my head was, hey, let's just leave River, start a company, get an O1, and then figure it out. That was kind of the thought process. So I left the company. I incorporated a startup, Ellis now, and the idea was, hey, like, what problem do I want to tackle in the world? And I think I got this advice from Alex. Alex is the founder and CEO of River. Is like, just tackle something that like a problem that you've faced before. And I was like, this immigration thing kind of sucks. Like personally, like it was very difficult for me, and it's bounded and controlled by laws and the U.S. government. But I thought that's where I would focus my energy. Raised $1 million pre-seed from existing investors from River, and I applied for kind of two statuses. I applied for the O1, which obviously has premium processing, and then I applied for the international entrepreneurial parole. That was, I think, at the time I applied, was like 1 or 2 months new. It was just like they just released it. I don't think like any applications had been filed, but I also applied for that. Obviously, there's no adjudication like windows for the IER. I got the O1 through premium processing, and then I think I mentioned this to you earlier, but I was in 2022 or 2023. There were like 6 IER approvals, and I was one of them. And so they approved me like 2 years later, and it was just like not helpful.
Right.
I still have it. It's like pretty cool, but it's just like I don't think anyone's actually on that status. I could be wrong, but I think there's like less than 50 people ever that have been approved, and I bet most of those people have O's anyways.
Yeah, it's interesting, and that could be a separate conversation about the fact that the IER in theory is a great program because we don't have anything meant for entrepreneurs, whereas other countries frankly do. But obviously there are other ways of doing it. You can now sponsor your own H-1B as a founder. Obviously, a lot of people take the L1 path. To back up a little bit, you said you obviously had this idea to start a business and get your O1 based on that. So and you raised $1 million, which is amazing. What was that initial business that you raised $1 million for and then applied for your O1 based on?
Yeah. So basically, I set the theme and mission of the company, and it was basically simplify immigration. So I started where I understood most, which is targeting international students. The idea was, can we build a cohesive immigration solution for international students moving to the US? So I think one problem I faced personally was fragmented systems. So I had to go one place for a bank account, another place to help me get set up, get my SSN set up. Needed to get a phone plan. I needed to get, a guarantor if I was moving off campus. There were just like a bunch of these like services that were frankly businesses in of themselves. But I got really obsessed with this idea of a compound startup, which is essentially like when you bundle many of these services and you provide a cohesive experience, the value is actually in the bundle. Where having only one place to go is the experience, and then you also have integrations between the products that wouldn't have been introduced otherwise. So the idea was, hey, can we build a cohesive immigration solution for international students, then eventually expand that out to all immigrants. I quickly realized two things. Learned a bit about myself, which is one, I'm not a B2C type founder. Like, it's just the the metric optimization of increasing conversion rates by 0.5%, just like does not interest me. That's one. And two, frankly, it was just like a really hard business because of the cyclical nature of it. So learning cycles are very, very long because you basically have one shot to sell the product, come summertime when people are moving to the US. And then, obviously as a business owner, you learn a lot of things about, the process, your service, and then you have to wait another year before you can implement those things. So that was really hard. So anyone tackling in ed tech, like, massive respect. And anyone targeting international students, that's a very, very hard market. And so this was also around the time when we thought, hey, we need to pivot this business. And it was around this time when the LLM started getting really good. It was like the ChatGPT moment happened. And I think it's not a novel or even brilliant idea at all. But the idea was, hey, can we apply AI to immigration law? Can we, finally, there have been many predecessors before us that have tried this idea of introducing software to immigration law. But can it actually be done end-to-end automated now that we have LLMs? And so we pivoted the company. We incorporated the Arizona law firm, which we can get into later. And today we are a high-tech, high-touch immigration law firm, primarily serving seed to Series D companies. So we like to say we help people start and scale their immigration programs. So we do a lot of O1 visas for founders. And then as they grow their teams, we support them with H1B lottery, which is coming up. And then the slew of employment-based visas at their disposal. Yeah, it's been a journey so far. I've learned a lot.
So it's awesome, and it's funny how the confluence of things happening. So obviously, being able to incorporate in Arizona as an alternative business structure and become a law firm is relatively new. ChatGPT and LLMs, becoming more usable and popularizing and growing in kind of comfort, right, or people's comfort with it is relatively new. And so all of these things happening, multiple things happening at the same time, is such a great opportunity to then take a step back and say, how can we leverage these things to build a new type of business or build on top of an existing business model? I know you raised, I want to talk about this briefly, but I do want to get to the whole Arizona thing because I think it's fascinating, and just to hear how your experience has been. But I know you said $1 million of pre-seed, and then I believe you raised $5.6 million seed or something around that. I was,
That's right.
looking at, what was the pitch at the time? Was it pre-pivot? Were you still pitching this idea of building a software solution for international students to help them navigate everything effectively when they came in? And the reason I ask this is because, as more people want to enter the immigration space, and as, let's say, AI is making it somewhat easier to have, a variety of different business models, they're going to try to raise money. And in my view, when I first started Laborless, there were so few companies in the immigration space that raised venture capital. It wasn't an investable industry, really. Now it's shifting. So just curious, like, what was your experience, pitching it? Maybe what were you selling? Obviously, I know you pivoted, but it worked at the time. So.
Yeah. So the pitch for the seed was the original idea. I think, thinking about the immigration market today, I actually think if you're only tackling immigration and doing cases for folks, I don't think that's an investable category. If I was a venture capitalist, I would not invest in that category. I think the question becomes, like, by having that core competency of being able to move people across borders, what business opportunities does that introduce? I think that's the frame I would think about it. Us, I mean, we have a couple competitors now. I think everyone's approaching it quite differently, but the wedge is, providing business immigration for growing companies, right?
Mhm.
Um, you know, just the laws of economics. When things get easier and when there's more competition, prices drop. I think we're already
Right.
seeing that, which I think is great, frankly. Um, I do have this belief that I do think there's going to be a software layer on top of these like government statutes for visas, and someone's going to turbo tax them, if you will. And I don't really care. I mean, I would like it for it to be us. My investors are not going to like me saying this right now, but I would like it for it to be us. But if someone else did it, um, I think that's like great for the world and like great for the US, and hopefully they expand it all over the world. Um, I mean, like imagine a world where you can essentially just uh, chat with a phone number, and it understands you and your entire immigration history, and it could just get you visas everywhere. And I think like
Mhm.
Americans like typically take their passports for granted, but most of the world you still have to get visas to go all over the place. So you know, uh, what if a Vietnamese citizen could figure out what the requirements are to go to China, or visit the Philippines or visit France. Like there are all these like, how do you build a software layer so everyone can just go anywhere within the bounds of the country's constraints? I'm a big fan of following the country's rules. I'm not here to impose any moral judgment on immigration policies. I'm just here to
Right.
create kind of like the software layer to operate on top of it to make it a little more user friendly, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And all those rules change, and there are certainly similarities around the world, but there are major differences in how countries implement their immigration policies. And it does feel like it's a major coordination problem, and getting the updated and information to whatever the platform is. But it does feel like it's within our grasp. Like the building blocks are there. It's just about, you know, all the pieces falling together the right way,
Yeah.
and making that possible. That would be super cool. And I think a lot of folks, especially in our industry, do wish that they're, to decrease the barriers of travel and barriers of mobility, and resettling. I mean, I remember I talked to a few founders around the COVID era when a lot of people were saying, oh, borders are shut down and immigration is going to sort of never come back. And I remember this one founder said, moving is natural. Like, it's human nature to want to explore and want to move and be curious about other parts of the world. It will never disappear, and this was COVID, when we thought the world is ending.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to downplay the, difficulties and challenges of COVID, but the idea is that we did come back, after borders opened, and here we are today with immigration continuing to be on the rise. So I would love to see that world as well.
I actually ran this analysis on our customer base. So we have travel history data for over 500 passports, right? So I could just look at travel, the frequency of travel, and it's actually rebounded stronger than it was pre-COVID. So people are traveling more now, and it's
Yeah.
growing like 7% year over year. Again, like we're pretty biased because we service a lot of founders and people who live on the coast, but I think like on average,
Mhm.
I mean, it's back, and like um, people are like traveling has always been like, yeah, human nature, like you said. People are always looking to explore. So how do we make that easier? Like I'm doing a trip with
Yeah.
my friends in a couple weeks. We're going to Japan, um, and first question is like, do we need a visa? Like, what's the process
Right.
here?
Right. Right.
So like you can Google it and try to spend a couple hours every day to figure it out, or what if there was a company that could just like make that super seamless and understand your global mobility needs, if you will.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, so before we jump into what Ellis is and how it works today, just want to take a quick pause. I do want to say thank you to the second sponsor of the show, which is Lex Reception. So for those who don't know, Lex Reception is a legal intake reception and client support service. So from answering phone calls and messages in real time to scheduling appointments, Lex Reception does provide immigration law firms with 24/7 legal answering specialists that are focused on that law firm, that have the script for that law firm, that are specialized in that law firm's clientele, so that the firm doesn't ever have to miss a call from a client or prospect ever again. And those folks can actually proactively reach out. So if you have, let's say, a form on your website that prospects are filling out, and then now you have a database of individuals who are waiting to hear from you, instead of you worrying about freeing up your time from casework and reaching back out to them, Lex Reception can help you proactively reach out to these folks. Lex Reception has a ton of integrations, and so they can fit neatly within your tech stack. So you can track everything they're doing within your dashboards and kind of have all that data in one place. So check them out if you're, again, a law firm interested in Lex Reception. They are offering $250 off your first month of service if you go to them through the GMI Rocket Show. So just check them out. There's a link in the show notes, and learn about them. And again, if you're interested, try them out for a month. You get the discount, and hopefully they will make your firm even better. So thank you, Lex Reception. Appreciate your support for the show, and check them out. Okay, so you've built this company, you've raised a bunch of money, you realize, okay, this isn't actually the way to go. We've got to pivot this a little bit and build something that will support B2B, so a law firm that will support businesses rather than kind of a business for international students. So you mentioned you incorporated in Arizona, and so you guys are an Arizona law firm, which to folks who are maybe don't know much about the industry, well, why would that matter? Well, immigration is a federal practice, and so you can be a law firm in any part of the country and support clients in any other part of the country, or frankly around the world. But there are still state rules, and Arizona is one of these states that allows companies to register as law firms and in short, receive outside capital, which your company already has had at that time, outside capital, so outside investors. What's that process been like? And sort of, as we get into what Ellis does and how it works, I mean, it's a law firm. So fundamentally, you're providing a service where you help companies with their immigration program. First, let's say the founder with their O1, and then as they grow, you help them build their mobility program. How does being an Arizona-based law firm with this sort of somewhat different structure, how do you think it's different? Where are the benefits, maybe where are the pitfalls, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, the way I think about it is like, figure out what you want to build, and then figure out how to make it work and legal. Where we decided where we wanted to go post pivot was we wanted to build a full stack immigration law firm, and that's very reflective in kind of the team that we have as well. So our offices we're in person, we're in Williamsburg. Half our team, lawyers and paralegals, the other half software engineers, product designers, product managers. And we really operate as this like interesting confluence between a law firm and a tech company. I've never worked at a law firm, but I've worked at tech companies, and it sure does feel like that, or inklings of that. So we wanted to do this thing, and there's a rule where non-lawyers can't own equity in law firms in those states. And so there's basically 2 experimental, maybe 3 now, programs called alternative business structures, where you can get incorporated as a law firm in one of these states, that allows for outside capital to be invested in. It's Utah, Arizona. I think Washington is launching a program as well. Someone needs to fact check me on that. But we did our legal due diligence, and we figured that Arizona was our best option. It was probably a year start to finish for us to go through that process. It was you have to create your compliance policies. You have to go in front of the Arizona Supreme Court and kind of plead your case. So that was pretty fun. put on a suit, which I don't do very often, and zoomed into the the Supreme Court hearings, and we were licensed. I think about a year ago, and we've been operating ever since.
So how do you find that benefits you? And I want to have this conversation with you because honestly, this conversation doesn't happen very often. And so maybe mobility teams who are looking at, or maybe a founder first and foremost, but founders
Yeah,
are pretty flexible, right? But
yeah,
existing, small, like you said, seed to Series D, is that what you said?
yeah,
So startups that are raising money that maybe are hiring dozens, if not a few hundred foreign nationals, they have to care about the not just you filing 101 and making it work,
yeah.
but the program, can you support them, etc. How, and this is a new paradigm, how should they look at a firm like yours that has outside capital, that has this alternative business structure? What are the differences that you sell to people, right? What are the differences that you share with them?
Yeah. So I would bucket immigration law firms slash practitioners into three buckets today. There are, you know, the founders are lawyers. They're typically buying software off the shelf if they're doing that at all. And they're primarily operating a law firm, right? And then there are one or two, including us, providers that have taken the route of compliance, and making sure that they are, licensed in the right way, hiring attorneys. Attorneys have complete oversight over this technology being built. Um, and there are clear delineations and rules between who can and who can't provide legal advice to a client. Um, that's why we got licensed for an Arizona law firm. And then there's this third category of form preparation software services, where they kind of market themselves as they are providing the service, but in the back end they're kind of routing a bunch of these cases to um, independent attorneys, where they're a form filling service or something like this. I didn't want to take that approach. I think that you know having lawyers in house, and then having attorneys sit next to our software engineers like we have here, just increases the feedback loop cycles a lot better, and you just end up building um, frankly more compliant and better software. Um, so that's kind of why we did it. So we can operate as a law firm.
And where do you think the benefits lie with a company working with a firm like Ellis that, as you said, you have outside capital and therefore what? You have better technology, like you can spend more money. I mean, for example, I know you guys
Yeah,
have a money back guarantee under some cases. I mean, that's a new thing. Most law
yeah,
firms do not do that because I did the work and I get paid for the work I did. There's no guarantee on what the government does. But like in the tech
yeah,
space, we understand what it means for companies to be venture backed. They often can operate at a loss for a number of years to get
yeah,
to build and to grow and to learn and to gain that's not standard in the legal and
yeah,
frankly many other industries. So can you share a
yeah.
little bit about your thoughts of like where does this outside capital thing, how does it manifest itself? How does it
I see.
actually, you know what I mean,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the legal market?
yeah. I mean, it allowed us to invest in building software from the ground up. So we were
Mhm,
very deliberate that we did not want to buy a case management system,
mhm,
um, because we wanted to build the experience of the technology platform. There's three users, right? There's the beneficiaries have a product, an application that they can access, manage their documents, their travel history. If they're going through a case, we have very specific dedicated intakes for that person.
mhm.
Um, then there's the organizations, right? The org admins need to manage their workforce. They need to know whose visas are expiring, what needs to be renewed. Um, what is my cost or immigration outlay this quarter. And then there's the application for our internal legal team. So we spent we've invested a lot in our technology to a point where, we recently launched a subscription service where, starting at $2,000 a month, growing companies have unlimited access to H-1B, TN, E3, H-1B1 petitions. And that's because we believe that we've essentially been able to automate those case types where the only human in the loop you need is, one, filing the LCA, which we're looking to automate next, and then two, human attorney review. So like at the limit, what that looks like is like someone kicks off an H-1B case or a TN, and the org admin fills out a form, the beneficiary fills out a form, and outspits a petition. We've built AI agents in the back to do a lot of this work, check the work, extract data from passports, extract data from I-94s. And we've built this entire rules engine, and it was very hard. It was like building a factory. But now the factory's live, and we've launched the factory. Now the idea for Ellis is, now that we have the scaffolding and the infrastructure to support kind of the more simple case types that are typically more low value, we can then expand the case types we support and eventually expand the countries we support, right? And so we're really thinking about this as like a software first company, where ideally at the limit, the experience does feel like TurboTax.
How do you feel about, and that makes a lot of sense. And, what about for companies that are thinking, all right, I love the automated, aspect of applications, and it's going to be quicker. Hopefully it'll be cheaper. I mean, obviously if it's unlimited for, 2,000 or however many, depending on your volume, still that's great, right? That's going to be a much more affordable immigration program and service, especially for small companies that need to be kind of diligent with how they spend their money. What about for larger programs that say, okay, well, I also, I have policy considerations. I have, things like that. Like as the companies, as their programs grow, their needs grow beyond just immigration. Do you feel that there's also any kind of benefit there of your kind of structure, where you support larger enterprises?
Yeah, I mean, that's only our subscription. You could still consume Ellis as, like you would any other immigration law firm. Like O1s aren't included on that list because you just pay per case, right? And we call ourselves a high-tech, high-touch immigration law firm because what does building good technology allow you to do? It actually allows our attorneys and frees up their time to do more high-leverage tasks, like helping companies set up their immigration programs, what policies they need, and then also even just like, frankly, just being a therapist to a lot of the beneficiaries. Like immigration in Trump 2.0 is like pretty scary. I can go into the details of that if you'd like, but it kind of removes the need for doing quote unquote grunt work for a lot of these cases.
Yeah. And of course, that's the idea. I mean, I'll tell you what, I mean, part of the reason I started Laborless is because when I was practicing as an immigration attorney, I focused on high volume H-1B visas, right? And I had to support my clients with their LCA compliance and their public access files and all that. And it felt like that specific process was so ripe for technology, and there was nothing on the market. I mean, there was case management, but I mean, frankly, even right now, there's not much on the market. I mean, Laborless is, in my view, obviously I'll say this for my own benefit, but the platform for folks to use for their LCA compliance automation, for their public access files, et cetera. And we have a lane, we stick with it. But at the time, I thought to myself, I don't want to spend my time on this. My best memories as an attorney was, all have to do with conversations with my clients. I mean, sometimes I'd come home, my roommates would be like, dude, why are you working till 8 o'clock? And, I'd be tired and stressed. But if I really audited my day, I probably spent way too much time on the phone with the clients who would call me and say, hey, what's happening with my H? By the way, what happens if I don't get my H? What are my options? Then I'd sit with them and I have their resume. I've got their sort of life story with respect to immigration. I know where they work, and we could talk through some options and this and that. And I just wanted as an attorney to get off the phone when I get off the phone with them, to know that at least they feel not worse, but hopefully
Yeah.
they feel better, right?
Yeah.
So to your point, that's what I loved about practicing. And then sure, after I got off the phone and I'm just feeling grateful that I get to do this work, I look at my desk and I'm like, oh my God, I've got all this paperwork I got to do. Or, I look at my computer and I've got all these files I need to review, or, cover letters I need to edit or whatnot. So
Yeah.
I totally, I know that I'm just sort of, agreeing with what you're saying with an anecdote where, the idea of removing the grunt work and working with clients. I mean, that's it's a standard line, right? That we
Yeah.
use in the
Yeah.
technology in the SaaS space for migration, but I
Yeah.
believe it's true because I've lived it,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even like sending an email when a case receives an RFE, or sending an email when a case gets
right.
approved, right? Like, we've automated a lot of that. These tasks that take 30 seconds, 1 minute, context switching out of your day, like, it's just fully automated, and it's end to end. So we have direct access to the USCIS API. We're getting lifetime notifications. I think, like, if you had to boil Ellis down into like a philosophy, and you can ask anyone on my team this, like, we really try to simplify. So how do you simplify this complex immigration process as soon as possible, as well as possible? We're investing some dollars into like injecting education directly into our platform. So let's say someone goes through an H-1B process for the first time. They have a question like, what is LCA, right? There'll be like an explainer video that you can click, and there's like a 30-second video of an attorney explaining what an LCA is, injecting kind of education directly into the product. So simplification is like one core tenet that we have. And then second is transparency. Like, we tell you, if you go on our website, like, we're probably one of the only firms that list our prices fully outright. Like, this is exactly what you're going to pay. If you don't get an approval, we'll refund your entire legal fees back to you. It's like a very like, here's the deal, you want it or you don't. And yeah, I mean, like, we keep people updated throughout the process. We'll know about the RFE before you do. We'll know about the denial before you do. We'll know about the approval before you do, because like, we just have lifetime access to all this stuff. I think the way I think about it is like, it allows immigration attorneys to do their job better. And then slowly automating many unfun parts of their jobs away.
Yeah.
And as AI gets better, and you're building specific workflows for a specific use case, like, you can just scale your time in a non-linear way, and it's just beneficial for everyone, because then costs go down, and it's pretty sweet. We've already kind of seen the beginning innings of that. So,
and also enjoyment goes up as a practitioner, and your longevity goes up, and the sustainability of you being, not stressing out, not burning out. I got a couple more questions. First of all,
sure.
Who are your target? Like, you're on the show right now, you're sharing about the business and about the firm. Who do you want to hear about this? Is it, customers? So, those founders or companies? Is it attorneys or staff, in terms of you hiring or whatnot? Like,
Yeah.
what are you interested in right now at the moment in terms of reach?
Yeah. One is customers. So we're always looking to work with folks on kind of starting and scaling their immigration programs. We recently started doing some family-based cases as well. It's not our bread and butter, but again, once you have built the system, you can apply it to other case types as well.
Right.
And then second is we're always looking for talented people to join our team. So whether you're an attorney or paralegal and want to enjoy your work more and essentially automate most of the grunt work away, we're always looking to talk to folks as well.
And this is, I mean, as you said, mostly employment based, but obviously, and even in employment based, someone's going to have a family member or a spouse that needs immigration support. And so a lot of firms, even if they're a traditional law firm and handle employment based, they'll always end up doing some family based to support, their clients.
Exactly.
So what are you, I guess, as a maybe penultimate question here, What are you excited about going forward with Ellis? Like, what are you guys working on that you can share? Or, I know you just said you've kind of launched a subscription model, which is pretty huge. So what are you excited about for, this coming next, let's say 3 to 6 months
Yeah.
for 2026?
In terms of, I'm very excited about like, I think the last year has been a lot about building the core infrastructure on, I like to call like the primitives of immigration. So how do you collect the right data and store that into structured data? So passports, I-94s, 797s, travel history. If you have all of those, you generally know what's going on with someone's immigration status. Obviously, there's like EAD cards and other stuff, but and so we have built the system to collect and store that information in the right place. Now it's about how do you add interesting automations on top of this. So now that you have the core infrastructure, like building these like minor products, it becomes very, very easy. I can give you an example of this. So since we're tracking everyone's travel history, we know what visa they hold, and we know what status they enter in on, because that's a thing on the I-94s. So we had a case where we got an L1B approved for someone, and they entered the country, 2 weeks later. But they entered in on ESTA, and our system caught that, sent them an automated email, say, hey, are you sure you meant to enter on ESTA? They were like, no. And we were able to communicate with CBP and get that resolved. So, these little checks that can only happen at scale at a software level have been very, very cool. That's one example. We've also launched this thing called Ellis AI, where if you're in the LLM world, it's like context is everything. Like the AI is smart, but it's only as smart as the information you give it. So if we have all of the information about a specific beneficiary, right, their entire immigration history, their resume, can we build a pseudo immigration lawyer that actually gives not legal advice, but some suggestions with a disclaimer on their immigration status? And if they wanted to talk to a human, they could talk to a human. But at a certain point, like, it's going to get better than a human. Like, people are just going to want to talk to this thing that has full context over their immigration history. And so, now that we have all of that information in one place, you can start building these things on top of it. And it's quite cool to see. Like, we have a FedEx integration, so you can track your petition. Like, we can actually see, like, our clients can see their petition on a map as they get delivered to Arizona. Right. We can also run analytics on, how long cases take. If you're sending it to Nebraska or Vermont, like, what are the current processing times? What's more likely to get RFEs at different places? Like, I'm very excited about like the data opportunities as we scale these things. We ran an analysis the other day on how quickly USCIS sends us mail. Kind of a black box, especially with the snowstorm in New York the other day. We got a bunch of mail delays, and our team had the idea, what if we just set up a satellite office in Arizona, like literally next to the USCIS center? Does mail get delivered faster? That's an experiment we're going to run, right? And like these are kind of the interesting things that I'm really excited to explore as a company.
Yeah, that's cool. And I feel like taking action on those things may be even easier or more accessible for a kind of a startup minded firm than not. Maybe, I don't know, I might be wrong about that, but that's really exciting. So as a last question,
sure,
this is maybe a little bit more personal for you as a founder, but as you continue to grow and scale the product and grow the business and the team, etc., right now, today, what is some advice that you are listening to? Not that like you would give to your former self or whatnot, but what's advice that you're heeding now, like in this current stage of where you're at?
It's really funny you say that, because I started working with a coach about 6 months ago. I'm like
Nice.
pretty self-aware in that, I started the company when I was 21. 21 going into 22. I'm 26 now. I'm still very early in my career. I have a lot to learn as both professionally and as a leader. So we started working with a coach, and we did 360 reviews for everyone on our team. Performance reviews once a year. And I was like, hey, let's do my review too. So it's like, okay, like everyone on the team, talk to Jared, and Jared's gonna give me a review. And he sent me actually the my review this morning. I read through it, and like I think overall positive, but there were definitely some critical points where my team members were peeved with me about, and I guess like one thing that stood out was scaling myself as a person or a leader, and learning to delegate. So I think this goes both in my personal life and professional life, but I tend to like to get deep into the weeds. I understand exactly how our code base works. I understand how we're filing cases. I know the pages per minute on our printer, but maybe relinquishing some of that control and trusting people to manage their functions is one thing I'm working to do this year.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And that, frankly, I'm sure that will ebb and flow. At some points you'll step away, and then something will cause you to get back into the weeds, and then you'll realize you're doing it, and everyone else will, and then you'll step back away. I kind of vacillate between the two as well. But yeah, that's really great advice, and very cool that you're working with a coach and doing this, especially as a growing business, because it's really probably easy to blink and suddenly. How many people are on staff now? More or less.
We have 13 full-time now.
Okay. Yeah, and you're probably managing some contractors and others, so it's a lot to deal with. And hopefully you guys continue to grow, and I'm sure in a couple of a year you'll blink and it'll be 100 or whatever. And then
that's the plan.
Yeah. So awesome.
But hopefully headcount doesn't scale linearly. Like if we're actually doing our job and the technology is being built, it should scale. Like if caseload 10x's, our headcount should like 2x or 3x, or at least that's the goal. But
that's the goal. I mean, that's the goal with AI, and that's the goal with software anyway. That it does more of certain things than a human can do, and is more efficient. That's really exciting. Well, Sampei, this has been an awesome conversation, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and kind of the story of Ellis and what you guys are working on. It's very exciting. Where can people find you? Where can people connect with you?
Yeah. You can email me at Sampei, SAMPEI @ellis.com. And you can email me directly, or you can go on our website at ellis.com and fill out the contact form. And I still look at all our emails, so I'll get back to
you. That's probably something you can delegate.
Yeah, probably.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. I hope you stay warm and out of the freezing cold snow here in New York, because I'm here in New York as well. And I really appreciate you being here. So thank you.
Thanks, Roman. Bye.
Really interesting conversation, everybody. Thanks, folks, for jumping on and for being here. I think it's fascinating to see where the immigration industry is going, and this sort of new crop of immigration law firms that are built with technology from the ground up and have outside capital. So we'll continue to see how this impacts the industry, how this impacts the practice, how this impacts clients, maybe how this impacts government. Really exciting times. Huge thank you before we go to DocketWise again, 8 a.m. DocketWise. So once again, the main sponsor of this episode, DocketWise, is an end-to-end immigration case management platform that provides best-in-class immigration forms, customizable questionnaires that make it really easy for clients, beneficiaries, et cetera, to just upload their data or files and pull that information for purposes of their immigration applications. They have tons of integrations with payment apps, calendar apps, everything you might need, including my company, Laborless. Great customer service. Like I said earlier, what DocketWise is really awesome about as well is all the free content that they provide for practitioners. So again, blogs and other resources for lawyers looking to expand their practice, learn about marketing, learn about mentoring, etc. They have they have ebooks as well on various topics. They have a podcast, so do check them out. 8 a.m., the number 8 am.com/SocketWise, or use the link in the show notes. And if you do talk to them, tell them that you heard about them from the GMI Rocket Show. So with that, thank you, everybody. If you're in the East Coast or anywhere that's been hit in the U.S. with the blizzard, hope you're staying warm. Hope your power's on. And hopefully you guys have a wonderful weekend, and see you next week. Peace out.